Hello, my name is Alexander Beletsky. I'm an international master, and today I present you a course which is called Beletsky Method. In this course, I want to show you in several hours how you can improve and how you can learn chess structured way and how you can implement it during your games. This course consists of several chapters where I speak about how you have to calculate the variations, how you have to evaluate different positions in the middle game and in endgame, and how you can learn chess openings in really fast and efficient way. And also I'll show you how this everything comes together. My experience is based on teaching different students thanks to the time I have spent together with the Grandmaster Eduard Guffield, who taught me many things, and thanks to whom I was able to reach this level. Thank you. Hello, my name is Alexander Beletsky, and thanks for watching this course. In this first chapter, I'll discuss the topic of variation calculation and how you can do it really in a structured and efficient way.
Hello, my name is Alexander Beletsky and I'm an international master. Today I'm going to talk about tactics and the way how we have to train. Many years ago, I got acquainted to the Grandmaster Eduard Guffield, and I was lucky to get regular training sessions with him when he was in Kiev, Ukraine. One of the methods that he was teaching me was method of forced moves. He used to say that you have to calculate variations in a disciplined manner and arranging the moves according to their force, how forceful they are, adds discipline and helps a lot in calculation. But how to do it? Well, you get chess puzzles and you solve them, as many as possible, as many as you can, using this method. So, initially it looks a bit complicated to use this method on a regular basis during the games. It's really time consuming, but if you train this method a lot, then you will discover that you can spot such moves and their consequences very quickly without really paying much attention. But it's all about training. And this is exactly what we are going to do now. I have taken a well-known free tactics database which was compiled by Uwe Auerswald. I read on the internet that he died in year 2008, but you still can find this great database, and really thanks for him for creating this collection of 3,500 tactical positions. So, let's start in the first position. I'll tell you whose side move is. You can pause, write down the first move that you see, and then we continue. Under forced moves, I mean capture with check, all moves with checks, all moves with captures. Well, additionally, you can also look at all possible moves that create some threats, and also all knight moves. But we'll concentrate on only these three types of forced moves: capture with check, check, and capture, and write those moves down. After you do it, you can continue to watch my explanation, what do I see, and how I look at chess puzzles. So, let's go. The first position has been played with white Alekhin against Rikondo in 1945, and it's white's turn to move. You can pause the video now, or you can continue watching it. So, capture with check, there is no such move. Checks, you have knight e7 and knight h6. You have two moves with checks, then moves with capture. Well, it's really good to start naming the moves from the strongest piece to the weakest. So there are no captures with the queen, there are no captures with rooks, and white bishop can take on f6, and white knight may take on d6 and g7. So let's take this all away. and these are forced moves that we see in this position. Forced move normally means that our opponent is obliged to respond to such moves, and his range of responses is really limited. So let's start with checks. The first move that I have mentioned is knight e7 check, but it's not really working because black simply captures and nothing happens. Another check is knight h6. After knight h6, black has two possibilities, where he can play king h8 or he can capture the knight. And already here we feel that this move is really strong, because the first response, let's make this move, the first response, king h8, loses a queen after knight captures on f7 with check, and the queen is lost. So usually when one of the responses is not working, it's a good sign that you should dig further, and in this case another second possibility is taking the knight, but now white's response is easy to see. It's bishop takes the knight, attacking the queen, and now what else? If black moves the queen, then comes queen g3 with a quick mate. And if black plays something like bishop g7, then white simply wins the queen. So here, after knight h6 and after calculating all black responses, you can stop and once again ponder if this move is okay, and if there is nothing else, then you can play it without really looking at all other moves. So this was a really very easy example. Let's move further and take next example. So here it's black's turn to move, so we can change the side from which we are looking, and once again let's look at all forced moves. You can pause the video now and write down the moves that you see and count them, and then compare to forced moves that I mentioned in this video. So captures with check. One capture is queen f1, then all moves with checks, there are no moves with checks, then all captures, and black can capture the bishop, or black can capture the knight, or black can capture the pawn. So let's look further. There are no other captures, so let's look further. Queen takes f1, then queen takes f1, and bishop takes f1, and king takes f1. It looks interesting. Let's try to calculate it deeper. Sorry, and let's take this arrow away. So let's look at queen takes f1, queen takes, bishop takes, king takes. So as you see, one of the ideas around this position is, of course, this pawn on c2, that's only one castle away from promotion. And now we can see that if black captures on b5, then white plays king, knight e7, and then he can take the rook with check and take this passed pawn back with a position which is probably really should be drawn. Some players, of course, would play on and even win this position with black, but it's not exactly what we are looking. And you know, a good idea when you're calculating variations, when you see something like this, is not to go immediately to the beginning of the variation, but to go step by step, just one move away. So here rook c8 makes sense, otherwise black plays rook b1 with check, and here of course knight e7 is good. So here we went step by step, move by move for back, and here we can look at another first move, this capture, where of course capturing with pawn isn't working due to rook b1 followed by c1 queen. Because of this, white has to recapture with his rook, and here what do we see? Nothing. Rook b5, rook c2, rook a5. So this position is looks really good for black with two extra pawns. So it means that it's possible to make this move, but and here once again it's important to go just one move back, and here we can look at the first move, which is knight takes on e7 with check, followed by knight c8, and here it's really a situation where white has material equality, but on the other hand black has this problem with the pawn, so the only way to defend it right now is bishop d3, but here comes the question what happens after a move like knight d6, or even white can try to push his pawns, but the easiest solution here probably is something like knight d6. So it's a bit complicated, and well, what makes solving puzzles much more easier is that we know that side that plays this usually has really something definite. So queen f1 is a complicated line, and in this situation where we still need to evaluate these complications, let's switch to other moves candidates, other first moves. In this case, we can look at rook captures b5, and here again it's rather possibility white has capture with check, knight e7, and the capture queen b5. It looks like both moves are interesting, but let's look at knight e7, and then we can take on c8, and here looks like black really wins due to all these exchanges, followed by rook b1 and c1 queen. Well, nice position, but is there anything else, or did we miss something? So instead of knight takes e7, we can look at queen captures the rook on b5, and here it's definitely one of those situations where white is piece up and can sacrifice something to get his position safe, and here still has ideas like knight e7 in mind. So this is once again such a position where we can quickly forget about the first moves and all possibilities, but because of this it's a good idea to initially to write down all first moves that you are looking at when you are training. Of course, during the game you can't do it, but this is good when you're at home and you can write everything down and look at it. So here's another first move is rook captures the knight, and here white has several possibilities. He can recapture with the queen, or take with the pawn, or he can capture the pawn with his rook. So it's really important to look also at first moves for our opponent. So let's take a look at queen takes c6, then comes queen f1 with mate. So queen captures rook isn't possible. Another option is to take on c6 with the pawn, but what comes now? Well, the easiest move looks like rook b1, threatening the mate in 2, and I do not see how white can avoid this. Also, queen takes f1, capture with check, looks interesting, with the same idea, rook b1, and here too black wins. So what move you prefer here is not so important, because both moves win. So, really interesting position, and checking once again the move rook c6, it's necessary to look at some intermediate moves, but here everything is more or less easy. It's situation where black is already rook up and his attack is going first. So, another example. Let's go to the next example. And here it's white turn to move. Well, once again, first moves, capture with check. No moves like this. Checks is rook g8. And captures, there is queen c1 and queen f5. So, queen f5 is means nothing. It's just losing a queen. And queen f1 is interesting. We know that the queen is under attack from the white queen and is supported by the rook that at the same time supports the square on g8. So as long as you see it, it's good. If not, this is the strength of first moves approach, since there is a first move and it's rook g8. And let's see what happens. As we mentioned, rook takes g8 brings nothing. And if black captures with the king, then comes first move. The only check that makes sense here is queen g3, followed by queen g7 and queen g8 with mate. As you see, the situation of black rook made it impossible for black king to move away. So, really simple position that normally in a blitz game, if you have trained a lot this approach of first moves, you discover in a matter of seconds or even milliseconds that you have such possibilities. Let's go to the next puzzle. And once again, it's white's turn to move. What first moves do we have here? Capture with check, it's queen takes the rook, or rook takes the rook on f8. Are there any other checks? No. Any other captures? Well, you have queen takes e6, queen takes d5, queen takes e5. Then you have knight takes d5 and knight takes e6. Are there any other captures? No, not that I see. So it's really a nice range of possibilities, and let's take a look at them. So queen takes on f8 isn't working. Knight d7 isn't possible due to knight captures on d7. Rook takes on f8 makes more sense, but here we see that first moves like queen f8 also they do nothing. Queen e5 just loses a queen, and all this knight e6 loses also a knight. But here we see that knight d5, and what we discover is that this pawn on e6 is pinned, so there is a pin because there is a black queen behind the move. Capturing on d5 would lose a queen, but here of course it's not so dangerous for black, since here we capture the queen and he can enter this position with being 2 pawns down, but still not so definite. So this probably would be a line that someone, myself in this case, would play in a blitz game, but if I would have more time to ponder, then let's look at the moves candidates, first moves that we mentioned before. So another possibility is taking on e6, but here looks like queen e6 is sufficient for black. Instead of this, we have also the move like knight d5, and here black doesn't have any checks, and as capture he can capture the knight, or he can capture the rook. So you see how important it is to name all first moves also for our opponent. And here, of course, taking the rook on a8 loses immediately the queen. Knight takes f6, and we see that white king isn't under any attack, so no risk here for white. And another move is to take the knight, but here we discover capture with check. Rook takes f8, bishop takes, and we win the queen. So another possibility would be to play king h7, and here it's a situation where white is quality and 2 pawns up. So here probably we can stop our calculations, or if you like we can look at moves like bishop d3, followed by the exchange of some pieces, and when you have material advantage, exchanging pieces is good. So this looks really promising. Knight takes on d5. Let's see if black has any reasonable answer. So one of the possibilities would be to move the queen, but as you see, white pieces are controlling too many squares that black queen can go. It's d8, e7, f5, and f4. All these squares are controlled by white, and after queen g6 we see knight e7, and black loses the queen. So what else do we have? Attacking the white queen would be one of the options in such positions where your queen is under attack, but once again here comes knight f6 with check, and then white captures the knight on c4. So knight d5 seems to be a winning move here, and that's really the case with rook f8 and queen f6. So white wins here. As you see, using method of forced moves is a bit complicated at the beginning, but it helps to solve puzzles. Let's go to the next example. So it's white's turn to move. Let's start again. Captures with check, no captures with check, checks. You see there is a move like knight f7, but here black simply can take without problem this knight. Nothing happens. So captures, it's queen f5, rook takes f5, and we see that c8 square is protected by the black knight, so there are no ideas of the back rank mate. So this isn't working either. What else? Well, you see that without the queen on f5, white is looking at h7, meaning that without the queen it would be queen h7 mate. And of course we have noted earlier that there are ideas of back rank mate here. There are no captures, and in this case normally you switch to moves with threats, and here it's rook f4, looking really great, since after queen takes on d3 comes rook f8, and in case of rook queen g5, same situation, and queen f4 will be replied by queen h7. So here rook f4 wins, and thanks to first moves we discovered some ideas that helped us later. Next position. So it's once again white's turn to move. Let's look at all first moves here for white. Captures with check, it's queen h7, queen g7, and there are no other captures with check, and there are no captures either. So, no captures with check and no checks. About captures, we see that white can take on g7, white can take on h5, white can take on e6, white can take on d6, and white can take on c7. Really, a number of possibilities. So, let's start with moves like queen h7. The only reply for black is king captures the queen. And so, when we sacrifice something like a queen, we need to play first moves. Otherwise, this is a really great material advantage for black. Rook takes on g7. Black can choose between king h8 and queen takes the rook. So, queen takes the rook looks nicer. Knight takes, king takes. So let's give another check, and black can really simply reply like king h8, and he has extra rook and piece, and I don't see how white's attack can continue here. So rook g7, queen g7, queen h7 isn't working. Let's look at queen g7. Well, it looks like white wins some material, but at the end you see that black has 4 light pieces. And white has only 3 light pieces, so white is bishop down. So because of this, winning just the pawn isn't sufficient in this position. But we look that without the black queen on d7, we could take on g7 and it would be made in one move. But let's continue with other first moves. Queen takes e6. Queen takes, we look that there is an idea of the discard attack, something like when the knight goes away, then there is a bishop that will attack the queen, but here I do not see how white can make use of it. And queen h5, it's an interesting move, keeping the game as the attack, but here black exchanges pieces. So we know that this exchange reduces white's attack possibilities, and it's really urgent that white has to do something. Moves like knight c7 are interesting, since if black captures the knight, then comes bishop e6, and we see that black queen doesn't have a good square here on the 7th rank, and it looks really promising and interesting. But here, unfortunately for white, black can take on c4, and now, even when white captures the rook, it's still a position where it's black who has an advantage. Apart from that, another possibility is just a simple queen takes c7, and here it's black who has an extra piece. But if there is and now there is something like rook f6, but it can be strongly met by queen e8. So it's probably one of the situations where white still has some attack. But because this is a puzzle, then it means that white has something more important. Well, knight d6 isn't working either. But there should be something more in this position, because we know that it's white's turn to move. And one of the possibilities connected with the ideas that we have discovered thanks to first moves is playing something like knight d e7, closing this connection between black queen and the pawn, and it's really really strong, since black takes, then comes queen g7 with mate and move like rook g8 isn't really working due to some simple answers like bishop takes on e6. So, really, one of those positions that took us much time, but we see that with forced moves we discover more possibilities and more ideas. Let's take another random position here, and it's white's turn to move. Well, we see it's similar to the Drakon position. Probably it was a Maroczy bind from Drakon, and here this is really typical situation. Of course, with white knight on e7 it would be mate, thanks to this bishop, and it's really one of those positions where there are not so many forced moves, but we have to calculate diligently these variations. And so checks, captures with checks, I do not see any. Captures, I see just knight takes on e6, but here it's quite simple. Pawn takes on e6 and nothing happens. But we discover that this idea with knight e7, and here it's easy. A knight move, knight d5, taking the queen and threatening knight e7. And after queen takes, knight e7 is made. So, really simple position where there were not so many forced moves, but still nice example on how I'm solving chess puzzles. So, next position, it's white's turn to move. Forced moves, capture with check is queen h5, checks is rook h7, and captures, checks is rook h7, and captures is like rook a7, rook b6, and queen f6. But if you look at the first forced move that we named here, then we see that it's mate in two, really forced and not so complicated. Next position is again white's turn to move, and here we go. Captures with check. No captures with check, checks, also no checks. Captures, well, white can take on b8, but a move like this makes no sense. We are exchanging our good bishop for a knight that is restricted by his own pieces on d7 and c6, so exchanging such thing isn't really interesting. Then we look at a move like if there are no other captures, well, bishop g6 makes no sense here, and if there are no other captures, well, we have also dc6, but then black can simply reply with something like pawn take, but then we have this nice move, knight d5, attacking the queen and the bishop, and it's difficult for black to defend it, so let's investigate it further. In this case, it's one possibility would be knight c6, then comes knight d5, once again attacking the queen, and you do not see a good way out for the queen and also the bishop. And another move would be to take with the queen. And here, of course, a knight d5 is possible, but it's not so dangerous because black exchanges the queens on c2. And a move like bishop b5 is interesting. It's definitely an interesting move, but here I believe that black can save the game with bishop f5. So really quite interesting position. So dc6 isn't really working because it gives black queen way out. So what else? Now we can switch to threats. One possibility would be to play knight a4, but here black has a good move, queen b4. What else? You can play d6, attacking the bishop. And now after black moves his bishop, let's say to f6, white can continue with the same idea, knight d5, and once again we see how looking at forced moves initially helps us later, even if the solution starts with a normal move, because we remember that the queen had problems coming out from coming away from attacks in the variation where we exchange on c6, and here the queen once again doesn't have any good move. So it means that moving the bishop isn't a solution for black, but he can take on d6. Now it would be natural to take on d6, but knight d5 is much stronger, once again attacking the queen and winning this queen. So, nice example where we see the strength of forced moves. Next example is black's turn to move, and let's look again. Captures with check. Such capture would be queen f2, but it leads to nothing. No other captures with checks. It's rook d1, and we discover that white king is in a difficult situation, since his own pieces restrict his position, so he can't move if there is a check on d1, which would be a mate if not these two white pieces overlooking d1. And this gives us an idea that if we are able to decoy white piece or queen or rook, then it would be really made in few moves. So any captures, well, we have rook takes on e2, but nothing serious here, even though it might be interesting. Might be an interesting continuation, but it's not so forced, not so interesting. And then we'll look at the possibility to somehow make this rook go away. One possibility would be to play queen a7, and after rook takes a7 it's mate, as we mentioned before. But let's go one step back, and we see that black has the possibility of queen a3, because after queen a1, a7, white can play rook e1, defending his king. But after queen a3, white has to capture the queen with his queen or with rook, because two pieces are under attack, and he isn't able to save his position because black really annihilates one of the defenders here. Rook d1 and black wins. So once again, looking at forced moves showed this idea with the back rank weakness in the white camp. So next example. It's white's turn to move. We know that black king is in an interesting situation, far away on the board. We see that black, there is a check, probably black has just played d2 with check, and the white king is under check, meaning that the number of moves for white is reduced, and the first move here, the first one that comes into mind is rook c4, meaning that black has only two possibilities. He can play king d6. Now let's look again at first move. So there are no captures with check, and there is a check like queen a3, but then the king goes away, but queen d8 is made. And another move is king c4, followed by queen c3, and it's also made. So here it was sufficient just to look at the first forced move to discover the right answer. And next position. It's white's turn to move, and we ask once again this question about the first moves. And what white has here, he can play capture with check is queen f7, but it means nothing. Let's say after king takes on f7. And as you see, the right answer is queen h8, check, king takes, followed by bishop f6, and rook takes e8. So it's mate. After this, we check once again, are there any alternatives? No. Here, black is mated really quickly. And next example, it's black's turn to move. So let's look from this side. And once again, captures with check. There are no captures with check. Checks like queen h1 or queen g2 bring nothing. And then we come to the captures. Queen takes on c2 will be replied with rook take. So it's also a nonsense move. Rook takes on c2 can be replied both by queen takes c2 and rook takes c2. There we see that if here after rook takes on, if rook takes on c2, if white replies rook takes, then there is an idea rook a1 followed by rook h1 or queen h1 was made. So it's interesting to see it, but here white simply captures on c2, and after this exchange white has slightly better endgame due to the pawn structure here. So it's not working. What else do we have? We see that the rook is right now pinned because there is a queen on e2. Because of this, this makes us think about how to make use of this pin, and a move that makes sense is rook c3, meaning that if white captures on c3 comes rook takes on e2, and rook taking on a2 isn't working due to this position, this mate that we have already seen before. So let's go with the next example. It's black's turn to move, and this is an interesting position where we do not have many forced moves. Capture with check? Check? Captures. Well, black has only two captures available. The one starts with 95, but here you see black loses at least an exchange or even more material. So taking on e5 isn't a viable option. Neither taking on e3 makes any sense here. So what else do we have? And well, take a look at this queen. It's really too far away from its position, and black has the possibility to play knight c4, taking away all these squares that white queen could go back, and the next move is b6 or bishop b6. The only way for white to save his queen is probably something like this, but here it's black that now renews the threat of b6, and still there is a white rook under attack, and black already is one piece off. So knight c4, just one mover that decides this game. Let's go to the next example. It's white's turn to move. Once again, all forced moves. White can take on h7 with check. It's queen h7. Rook takes on h7. All moves with checks is just queen f8 check. All moves with captures, it's queen d7, and it's queen takes on g4, and there are no other moves with captures or checks. So let's look deeper, and queen takes on h7 makes no sense after rook take. And another move is rook takes on h7. Here black has two possibilities. He can take on h7, but now we discover queen f8 was made, or he can play king g8. And once again, what do we have here? We look at captures with check, so it will be rook g7, it checks rook h8, queen f8, and d6. So we discover this check, and looks like it's really the strongest check that we have here, with black doesn't having any good reply. Like here, rook f7, we can simply take and play bishop e6 with another check, and simple, easily winning. So d6 is really sufficient to win, and we do not look at other moves since this is really strong. So we see that after a simple rook h7 there is queen f8 made, and white wins, and we don't need to calculate other variations since rook h7 is really strong. So next example. It's black's turn to move, and as I have mentioned before, it's a good way to improve your calculation, also by looking at forced moves that are available to your opponent. So here black sees that white wants to capture the rook with check. The queen will check this king on e8, but luckily it's black's turn to move, and he can do something to prevent this. Well, captures with check, I don't see any. Checks, also black doesn't have any checks. Captures, well, we see that capture like bishop g2, loses in 2. One possibility is like this. So it isn't working. Another capture is to take the knight, but here it's a real situation where white can also play something like this, removing the knight and threatening to play bishop g5, which is made. So it's really another bad move for black. And what else do we have? Well, knight g3. It's a possibility because we attack the queen, and if white takes on h5, on h8, then we can take on h5. And because of this, it's a nice move to look at. But there is another strong move. It's just attacking the queen with the bishop. But let's take once again after knight g3. Black can simply reply with pawn takes on g3, and we get to the same situation where black doesn't have any solution, any viable solution against this situation. He can play bishop e2 here, and it's really interesting. Now, if black takes on e2, then black is, if white takes on e2, then black captures, and black is an exchange up. So what else do we have here? Well, we see that bishop e2 is really nice and strong move, but why should we give up the knight if we can play the same move right now? So bishop e2. Now if white plays f3, we have this move knight g3, and if white captures on e2, we take on g6, and here, in comparison to the previous position where we played knight g3 immediately, black is rook up, which is much more easier to convert into the winner. So a move like this, bishop e2, that once again was calculated thanks to the forced moves approach. Next position, and it's white's turn to move. Let's look again. Any captures with check? Yes, we do see bishop g7 check, opening the king. It's really immediately you suppose that there are not so many black pieces on the king's flank, it's just this rook. So what else do we have? We have no checks and captures. We have something like rook takes c5 and bishop takes c8, but bishop takes c8 loses the queen on this board, and rook taking on c5 is an interesting option in case if bishop g7 isn't working, then we can calculate the consequences of rook c5, but bishop g7 looks really too promising not to calculate it, and now it's important to look at all forced moves that we have, and let's start with check. So the first impression is that queen g4 is a strong move, but is there any other check here for white? Yes, it's queen e5, and now after king g6, white mates black king really quickly. So you see, our first impression of playing queen g4, it's interesting, but looks it's not so direct as queen e5, after which black doesn't have many choices left, like after king f8 comes queen f6 mate. So really simple but nice position where we once again see how good this approach is with forced moves. Next position, it's it's black's turn to move, so we look from this side, and here capture with check, it's queen g3, and immediately we spot that after king takes on g3 we have this bishop e5 mate, and this is a promising situation where we can look further and say what happens after king g1. Well, it comes to the same situation where black plays bishop e5, now preparing queen h2 with mate, and thanks to the fact that black controls the f file, then there is no way out for white. So let's look at next position. It's white's turn to move. So here there are no capture with check, there is no capture with check, there is no check available, no checks, no captures with check. Also, when we speak about captures, the only one is rook takes on a4, but it brings nothing. And in this case, we look at all moves with threats, and it would be bishop b7 attacking the rook, and bishop c6 attacking the bishop. So let's see what happens here. After bishop b7, black can reply with a simple rook b6, and bishop c6 can be simply replied by rook takes on c6. What else? Well, there is also an idea of creating a threat via bishop e4 followed by bishop c2. It's interesting, but it's way too long, since as soon as we play bishop e4, black can reply with bishop b5, and now this pin is no longer valid, and black really is able to improve his pieces. So we know that there are no direct solutions for white in this position, and in this case we know that black wants to exchange his rooks with bishop b5 move, and now our task is to prevent this. And in this case it's really easy, since if you play rook a2, then there will be a bishop defending the rook on a2. If black plays bishop b5, then white can recapture and the rook is defended, meaning that black can't move his bishop and his rook, and it also means that white can proceed further with his plan of creating for example, a passed pawn. So ideas like f4, e4, and pushing his pawns forward. So it's really an interesting situation of the pin where there were no forced moves available, but where it's exactly as a situation where we need to discover all ideas, and calculating forced moves first helps a lot. So let's go to the next position, and it's white's turn to move. Well, immediately we spot that there is a black king and there is a weakness of the back rank. And as I have mentioned before, another popular approach of discovering combinations in chess puzzles, technical puzzles, is looking at motives and discovering the means. How we can achieve this, and here it's relatively easy to spot. If there is a white queen on the 8th rank, then it will be made. But how do we do it? Well, white bishop on b1 is right now under attack, it's white's turn to move. Captures with check, one would be queen f7, but it makes really no sense at all, queen f7. And another possibility would be bishop takes on h7, but here, once again, king takes on h7, as the king is really free from the back rank threats. Move with the queen like queen c7, creating some threats of queen d8 and queen c8. This approach isn't working because black takes the bishop on b1 with check. So, really, are there any other possibilities for white? Yes, there is one, and it's really attacking the black bishop with bishop f5. And now if black moves his bishop away, then it will be queen b8 with mate, with a quick mate, and same goes for bishop takes on f5. It's also close to mate. And what else? Well, let's look at forced moves. The only reasonable check for black is queen a1, but then comes king h2, and it's also the situation where the black bishop is under attack, and trying to defend it isn't really bringing much, since black can't defend his bishop, because now the bishop is pinned and it can be protected only by black queen, but white pieces, the bishop and the queen, both attacking the bishop. So it's an easy win for white. And black can reply with queen f6, also pinning the bishop on f5, but white replies with queen c7, and after queen f5 comes queen d8, and it's checkmate. So, next example. It's black's turn to move. Let's switch the side. And here, capture with check is queen f2. White replies with rook takes f2 or king takes f2, makes no sense. Checks is rook e1, and here we see that if white replies with king h2, then what happens up next? Unfortunately, rook b1 isn't working due to queen takes the rook with mate, but we see that g2 is under attack, and black has the possibility of playing queen g6 with a double attack. Black queen attacks the rook on b1, and at the same time it attacks the pawn on g2, which really ends this game. So, another answer for white, it would be taking on e1, and now, of course, queen b5 is possible. After rook d8, black can reply with rook e8. Another option would be to take on b5 immediately, but the other one is much simpler. So here black wins with move like rook e1, and discovering queen g6 is something that is connected with threats. So let's go to another example, and it's once again black's turn to move. Here I do not see any checks for black, and there are no captures, and the move with red is b4, attacking the bishop on d7 and at the same time both pawns, and it's an easy win, since after white captures on a4, black recaptures on a3 and is threatening to play a1, a2 and a1. So let's go to the next position and take a look at what happens here. It's once again black's turn to move. So any captures with check, we see that black is rook down, he has 2 pawns, and white threatens with mating 2, meaning that only forced moves are good for black. So here with rook down, probably there is no mate, and black has to hope for a draw, and here he really achieves this. With king h1 not possible due to queen h2, and the move like king g1 is also not working due to g2, and g1 comes with check. But at the same time, white can take on g3, eliminating mate threats, but now we see that queen e5 provokes queen takes e5, otherwise white would lose the queen, and this is a stalemate. So let's look at another example. It's let's look from this side. It's white's turn to move, and there are no captures with check. There is a check. It's g6, and of course passed pawn. We see that after g6 white loses a pawn on f6, but what happens next? Do you see? It's g7 and another forced move, knight f5, and white recaptures on h4, and this endgame is winning for white. Another quick example. So here let's use once again our method of forced moves. It's white's turn to move. Captures with check is there is a rook e6, but it looks like makes nothing after simple move like rook takes e6. Checks, I see only one check, it's rook f8, and after bishop takes f8, we discover that there is this situation where white can make a move, capture with check, bishop g6 with mate. Well, really, I don't see any viable solution for black. It's everything is forced and it's mate. So once again, this method helped to solve this puzzle in a matter of seconds. So let's look at another example. It's white's turn to move. There are no captures with check. There are 2 possibilities to give check. The one is knight h5, another one is knight e8, and well, which one is better? We see that after knight e8, if black takes on e8, then white can play d5, queen f6, well, then comes queen f6, king f6, and rook takes e8, and here black is in exchange up, and he can win this position quite easily because there are pawns on both flanks. So here it really looks interesting. If black plays something like king e f8, then once again d5 with the idea of queen h8 mate. What else do we have? We can play king h7, but then comes d5, threatening queen g7 mate. And the ideas of rook e8 are not working because the white rook on e1 is protected by the white queen. Okay, so what else? Knight e8 looks promising, queen e8 isn't working either. And now we have to find out what's the difference between knight e8 and knight h5. Well, after knight h5, black can take on h5, and after d5 he plays queen f6, and he is a piece up here, so with extra bishop on c4, and he has nothing to worry about, and in this case we conclude that knight e8 is the strongest move in this position, with entering this endgame. So during this hour we were looking at some tactical positions, trying to solve them using an approach where we name the first moves and then look at these first moves under an idea that capture with check, check, and then capture are the first moves to look at. You see that it's really easy to solve chess puzzles using this method, and I want to warn you, before trying this method in your over-the-board games, please practice on chess puzzles, because during the over-the-board game you do not know whether there is a combination or not, and the idea of this approach is that you, after training it for so many hours, that it will become your automatic habit to look at first moves without paying too much attention and without losing too much time. So this method is really ideal for your home exercises.